Wheel tips. Now you notice what I've done is I've taken a piece of 2x4, run through it with a 2-inch hole saw, then cut it in half. Use that in the vise, that way it holds the shock body securely without damaging it for the customers. Okay, let's get started. Step 1 is going to be gently bleed off the pressure if there's anything left. You'll hear like slight hiss. Perfect. Then you're going to take it, ever so slightly tap that down, exposing the snap ring on the inside. Alright, so now that you see the snap ring is exposed, what we're going to do is we're going to take a hook, we're going to get it underneath the ring and simply get it wedged in there and boop. There we go. Next, we're going to take a pair of channel locks, grab the piston by the Schrader, the nut on the Schrader valve, that way we're not damaging anything, and gently wedge against the body of the shock, which will pull the piston up. Then all you have to do is use pressure with your fingers, and out it comes. You'll notice this is one of the seals we have to replace. We'll get to that in a minute. Alright, now we want to drive the internal piston out, which separates the nitrogen section from the fluid section. Personally, I just use a small piece of brake line, slide it into the shock body through the AN fitting on the bottom, touch it against the piston, use a dead blow hammer, and lightly tap. This is going to be the second seal that you have to replace in this section. Now to do the seals, what I like to do is I have a use that same hook, place it underneath the seal sideways, spin it, grab it, pry off, and this will not be used so you can discard it. Grab your new seal, lubricate it with a little bit of shock oil, it slides on easy. Simply roll it into place. Okay, that part's done. Let's deal with the, remember our Schrader valve section with the seal. Same method. Take the hook, drop it in next to the seal, turn it, pull off the old, take the new, a little bit of fluid, simply roll it into place. At this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to evaluate the inside of the shock tube to see if there's any debris or anything that needs to be cleaned out. If there is, I'll simply use a good quality shop towel with no lint and just give it a general wipe down. So the next part is to start beginning reassembly. Now it's critical that you get this guy here at the right depth inside the reservoir tube. So what we're going to do is I've taken simply a measuring stick, marked 10 centimeters to where the blue tape is, and we're just going to put it in, gentle tap, depress this, usually then all you do is you just simply use this as a gauge. And you just tap. And that is going to be the amount of the cylinder that holds the nitrogen. So you can see, right to our blue tape, 10 centimeters on the nose. Then we're going to take our seal with the Schrader valve that we had before. We'll tap with a soft hammer. Ta-da! Reinstall the snap ring. Step one, I like to use a 3-in-1. You can get them at any paint store because they have a very, very fine edge. Makes this part a lot easier. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your 3-in-1 in between the dust cap and the shock body. And give it some good raps with a hammer and it will pop it right up. Once you get it exposed, you want to take a flathead screwdriver, place it in between the dust cap and the shock body, and just kind of follow it around, letting the taper of the screwdriver run the dust cap off. It's a great way of doing it without damaging anything or scratching the shock body. And off it comes. Once you get it off, what I've done is I've taken a small piece of hose, cut it in half. It's the same size as the piston. I slide that around and I use it to keep all the parts out of the way while I'm working. Alright, the next step is you're going to take a soft face mallet and you're going to hit the internal seal a few times, driving it back into the body of the shock, exposing the snap ring on the inside. And back to our same hook that we had earlier, and place it under the snap ring. Prying out gently, removing the piece. You're going to need 2 screwdrivers, and you're going to take them, put them under each side. There's a little lip in there, and simply pry up using the shock body. Alright, so what you notice is that you run out of room to pry, and the cap's still not all the way out. So what I do then, drop the shock body down, use 2 small pieces of metal, and then just simply repeat the process. And out she comes. Slide it up, take our piece of rubber hose, slide it back on, and the whole system's out of the way. Now what you've done is you've exposed another snap ring. You need to depress the piston a tiny amount to expose it. Get your hook again, put it under the snap ring and simply pull up. Out it comes. And we're free. Okay, so what I've done is I've simply flipped the piston upside down in the vise, exposing the shock valving. 1/2-inch wrench. Remove the lock nut. We're going to take that, brake clean it, set it aside for later. Carefully remove the valving, making sure that you do not mess up the order, because if you do, it'll change the way the shock works. So just take that as a stack, set it aside. You're now ready to slide all of your internal components off. This is getting replaced, and set that aside. We don't need to reuse that. This is the dust shield with the wiper. Simply pop the wiper out, and we're ready to start reinstallation. So now what I do is I take a nice, good, clean, non-linty shop rag, take my old components, give them a good wipe down. If there's any oil or whatever, you can use a degreaser, you can use your parts washer. At this point, not really that big of a deal. Shiny. Ooh. Take new wiper seal. We'll dab a shock oil on the inside where the piston's going to ride, that way it's not dry. Just kind of give it a once over, and we'll wipe the whole shock body down after we're done with installation. Drop it back in the cap. Slide her on. Kind of tight. So yeah, just make sure it goes on, seat it the correct way, install, drop it down. Next, our new lovely, beautiful parts from Bilstein. Thank you, Bilstein. Appreciate it. Once again, light dab, light dab. Keep everything nice and lubricated. Get the outside of the O-rings, everything. That way we're not putting anything in dry and hurting the system. Reinstall as we took it out. Now what we're going to do is we're going to brake clean off our threads, because this has to be Loctited when you reassemble. And Loctite doesn't like oil. So I'm simply going to keep a rag there to control the runoff. Brake clean. Wipe it dry. Good to go. I'm going to take our lock nut, repeat the same thing. Now we're going to reinstall the shock valving. Same exact order that we took it off, making sure that everything goes back on clean. And we're done. Take it, spray. Right. What that does, so if you got oil over your threads again like I did, simply rip it. Keep the brake clean where it belongs. Give it a little spray. Wipe it off. Clean and dry. Ready for the nut. Red Loctite, your lock nut. Give it a couple drips. Get it on there. The instructions call for 9 foot-pounds. Just get it on nice and snug. Take a rag, wipe off the extra Loctite on the top. You don't want that getting in the shock fluid. That part's done. Now what you're going to do is you're going to pull this guy off, because this gets replaced in the kit as well. Here's our new one. You'll notice this is not formed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this with brake oil, get it nice and pliable, and then when I go to reinstall the piston inside the shock body, we'll bend it and put it in. Alright, so now we're going to fill up our remote reservoir. There's no real trick to this. We've already set the internal depth for the nitrogen chamber. Simply, I use large syringes. Pick these up at any supply store with a small tip. Should take about 200 milliliters of fluid, close to it. Once the reservoir is topped off, what you're going to want to do then is start attaching your hose. Now these need to be tight, but not overly tight, or you will break the fittings and you will be sad. So 11/16 wrench. And we're simply going to fill the shock body most of the way up. Don't fill it all the way up. Now Bilstein has some specific volumetric measurements, but I'm going to show you how to do it without measuring, just in case you have some customer off-body shocks, right? Take your shock fluid, shock oil, shock fluid. Simply fill it up. You'll hear the air bubbles come out of the hose. Get it to within an inch or two of the top. All right, we don't want to go crazy here. Give it a couple taps on the tube, make sure all the bubbles are dislodged. You don't want to aerate here. Get it in and slowly slide into position. Now what you'll notice is that the piston, as it travels into the shock body, is going to depress a significant amount of fluid. That's why we don't fill it all the way up. So you want to get this to within an inch or so. Once you do that, simply take your syringe again, top it off the rest of the way with fluid. You want to come up basically to right where that snap ring is going to sit on the inside of the housing. Take your lower snap ring, make sure it's clean. There we go. Installed. And we're going to take our seal. Put it into the shock body. At this point, we know the fluid level's set right. You can give yourself a little breathing room. Take your soft-faced hammer, eat it the rest of the way and be angry at it. There you go. Once it's exposed, take your other snap ring. Drop it into place, and we're done. Now you're going to simply remove our piece of rubber hose, put the dust cap on, and strike firmly to set in place. There we go, all done. The only thing that's left now is to nitro charge it, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so we flipped the completed shock, it's all the way full, back together. It's time to nitro charge it. We got the reservoir pointed up, simple Schrager valve, works just like it would on your tire. My nitro rig, set the regulator to 200 psi. Now Bilstein says a range between 180 to 220 depending on application. With this one we're going right smack dab in the middle. Valve's open, regulator set, Schrager valve on, and you simply take it and push. Hold it on until the piston extends all the way out on the shock body. Alright, we're all done. Thanks for watching. Remember to, questions in the comments if you have any. Hit the subscribe button. It's going to be right there. Subscribe. Like us, follow us, share it on Facebook. We have all of our pages, websites, www.ocd4wd.com, right here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.